My name is Sister Agnes Holloway. I am 86 years old, and I have lived in silence most of my life. Hidden behind the tall stone walls of St. Benedict's Convent in West Yorkshire. To the outside world, I was the picture of holiness, a faithful, prayerful woman who gave her life to God. But what they never knew was that behind those ancient chapel doors, I had seen things so horrific, so unimaginable, that I buried them deep in the graveyard of my mind. Till now. It happened during winter. The snow outside fell like ash, gentle but cold, and inside the convent it was colder still. Sister Martha screamed in the chapel at midnight. We all ran toward the sound, barefoot across the icy floor, habits whipping at our legs. I was the first to reach her. Her body was twisted unnaturally on the stone altar, eyes wide open in terror, mouth agape, yet no sound came from her. Her tongue had been cut out. Blood seeped from between her fingers as if she'd tried to hold herself together. And on the wall above her, scrawled in something darker than blood, were the words, "She knew too much." Froze. Behind me, Sister Patricia fainted. Another sister screamed. Mother Superior arrived last, and the moment she stepped in, everything changed. Not in panic, not in shock, but in eerie calmness. She stared at Sister Martha's mutilated body like she'd seen it before. Or worse, like she expected it. "Seal the chapel. Say nothing to anyone. This is not the first, and it will not be the last," Mother Superior whispered, her voice cold enough to freeze bone. I remember shaking violently, not from the cold, but from the truth I could feel crawling beneath my skin. That was the night I began to fear not the devil, but the people who claimed to fight him. I wanted to scream, to run, to tell someone, anyone, but the gates were locked tighter than a prison, and no one dared question Mother Superior. Not even me. But that night I made a promise to myself. I would find out what happened to Sister Martha. Even if it meant unearthing the darkest secrets this convent ever held. But nothing prepared me for what I was about to discover beneath the sacred ground of St. Benedict's. Because Sister Martha wasn't the first. And she definitely wasn't the last. The worst part. I had already seen the monster behind the mask. And I just didn't realize it. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Before the silence, before the screams, before I learned that evil wears a habit too. When I first entered St. Benedict's Convent, I was just 16 years old, young, naive, and filled with a kind of blind faith that made me think I could save the world with a rosary and a prayer. It was 1955, and my mother had just died from consumption. My father, unable to raise a girl alone, signed me over to the convent's guardianship. I remember his signature trembling on the parchment, and I remember the look on his face, a mixture of grief, guilt, and relief. I didn't cry. I told myself it was God's plan. The nuns welcomed me with open arms. Sister Mary Lucille, a plump woman with a gentle smile, took me under her wing. She taught me how to wash linens, how to scrub the chapel steps until they gleamed like marble, and how to recite the Psalms in Latin even though I barely spoke English properly. First it felt peaceful. The walls of the convent were high and thick, but to me they were walls of safety, not confinement. We sang during sunrise prayers, we fasted during Lent, we tended the garden where the roses bloomed in impossible beauty. I believed God was smiling on us. But even in those early days there were whispers. Sister Benedicta, a thin woman with sunken eyes, rarely spoke. When she did, it was in riddles. One night, I heard her mumbling in the corridor. Eyes rolled to the ceiling as though she saw something no one else could. "They come in the dark. Always the dark. No God here when the doors close. No God here." I was told she suffered from visions, and was not to be disturbed. Believed that too. But the more time I spent at St. Benedict's, the more things didn't add up. There was the bell tower, for instance. No one was allowed up there. It was boarded shut with rusted nails. When I asked Sister Mary Lucille why, her smile faltered for a second. "Too dangerous, dear," she said. "We've had accidents." Then there was the old ledger I found in the library, tucked between hymn books. Names scratched out, pages torn, dates that didn't match anything in the convent's history records. I brought it to Mother Superior once. She slapped the book from my hands before I could say a word. Some things are better left untouched, she said, eyes burning like coal. Are we clear, Sister Agnes? I wasn't even a full sister yet. That night I had my first nightmare. I dreamed of girls, young, terrified, locked in a room underground, banging on the walls. I woke with blood in my mouth from biting my tongue in my sleep. My heart pounded like the chapel drum before morning mass. From then on I watched more carefully. I noticed how certain sisters simply vanished. One week they'd be at Vespers, humming along to the hymns, and the next they were gone without a word. When I asked, I was told they'd been transferred. But no one ever said where. One of them was Sister and my dearest friend. She was the first person who dared to whisper the truth to me. Something isn't right here, Agnes, she said one night while we peeled potatoes in the kitchen. I've heard things. Scratching behind the library walls. Screaming at night. And the tunnels beneath the convent. They're real. I've seen the entrance. I didn't believe her at first. I told her she was tired, or perhaps imagining things. Then she disappeared. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. I demanded to speak to Mother Superior, but she was on retreat. Sister Mary Lucille told me and had been called elsewhere. But the look in her eyes betrayed her. She was afraid. That same night, I followed the sound of weeping into the old laundry room. The convent slept, but something pulled me there. A whisper, a gut feeling. I opened the door slowly. Sister Benedicta was kneeling on the cold floor, clawing at a loose tile with her fingernails. There underneath, she croaked, not looking at me. All the forgotten girls. They never left. And neither will you. Before I could respond, she collapsed. The other nuns found me minutes later, kneeling over her shaking body. They called the physician. Said it was another one of her episodes. But I knew better now. From that moment on, I stopped praying for peace and started searching for truth. And I found it, piece by piece, in places no one dared look. Like the sealed confessionals in the East Wing. I found a blood-stained rosary there. Like the hidden trapdoor behind the altar in the side chapel, covered with an old rug and a stack of broken pews. It led down into a crypt that reeked of damp and despair. But it was what I heard down there that truly unraveled everything. Voice. Not in prayer. A girl's voice, hoarse and desperate, crying out, "Please, don't leave me here again." I ran back upstairs, heart in my throat, breath ragged. When I returned the next day, the trapdoor was gone. Cemented over. And Mother Superior watched me at breakfast with a smile too wide for her face. That was when I realized I was being watched. Every step. Every glance. Every breath. My prayers had become threats. My silence was no longer protection. It was participation. So I wrote everything down. In letters. Dozens of them. I hid them in hollowed-out hymnals, behind stone statues, inside the garden well. I told myself that if I ever disappeared like the others, someone, somehow, would find my truth. But I had no idea what would come next. Because one of those letters fell into the wrong hands. And the punishment for betrayal inside St. Benedict's was worse than death. It was disappearance. And just before I was dragged to the bell tower in the dead of night, I remember looking into the eyes of Mother Superior, and realizing I had seen them once before. In the shadowy painting of St. Cecilia, hanging above the library fireplace, painted in oils thick as secrets. Except the eyes in that painting were real. Now, here I am, alive by God's mercy or perhaps by someone else's game. But I'm not safe. Not anymore. Because last night I heard Sister Anne's voice in the walls again. And this time, she was calling my name. I didn't sleep after that. I sat upright in my narrow cot all night, fingers clutching the rosary so tight it left small crosses indented in my palms. But it wasn't prayer that kept me still, it was fear. The kind of fear that slinks into your bones and stays there, quiet, patient, waiting to devour you from the inside. Sister Anne's voice hadn't been a dream. I knew her tone. The slight tremble in her words, the same one she used when she was afraid of the dark, or when she'd sneak chocolate into the garden after curfew. Except this time, she wasn't afraid of shadows. She was afraid of being forgotten. I waited for morning light to spill through the stained glass windows before moving. The convent buzzed with its usual routine: prayers, chores, hushed chants, but it all felt hollow now, like we were actors performing someone else's idea of holiness. I had to know where her voice had come from. So after morning duties, I made my way back to the chapel, carefully avoiding the sisters' eyes. The heavy silence inside the chapel felt different now. Too tight, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I knelt at the altar, bowed my head and whispered, "And, if you're still here, if they're holding you." The sound that followed was not a voice. It was a knock. 3 soft knocks from below the altar. Stopped my breath. My body turned to stone. I didn't imagine it. The trapdoor they cemented had been in the side chapel. But now this sound, this message, came from beneath the main altar. New place. Another hidden space. I waited until the evening meal to make my move. That's when most of the sisters retreated to the dining hall, and Mother Superior often took solitude in her quarters, writing in that leather-bound book of secrets she guarded more than the Holy Scripture itself. Under the cloak of the evening shadows, I slipped away with a candle and returned to the chapel. The doors creaked louder than usual, like they were trying to betray me. I searched along the altar base, pressed against the panels, knocked lightly. In that hollow spot, my hands trembled as I ran them across the paneling until I found a slight indentation, hidden beneath the carved edge of the stone crucifix. Pressed hard. Click. A square section of the floor shifted, barely perceptible, but enough for me to wedge my fingernails in and lift it. A gust of cold, damp air hit me in the face, carrying with it a rancid smell of mold, sweat, and something else. Something metallic. Blood. The opening revealed a narrow stone staircase spiraling downward into complete darkness. I hesitated. Every part of my soul screamed at me to stop, to turn back, to pretend I heard nothing. But Ifan was down there, or anyone else. Had to go. I descended step by trembling step, candle flickering with each breath. The silence was so thick it pressed against my ears like cotton. And then halfway down I saw it, scratches along the wall. Fingernail marks. Deep ones. And writing. We were never meant to leave. They said God would save us. But God isn't here. Agnes, please. I covered my mouth with my sleeve to stifle the sob that burst from my chest. She knew I would come. At the bottom of the staircase was a narrow corridor, barely wide enough for one person. The walls were damp, dripping. And along the side were iron doors, cells. Real cells like a dungeon. The first 3 were empty. Just old chains, broken cots, rotted fabric. The 4th wasn't. Stop. A figure lay huddled in the corner. Too thin, too still. My candlelight quivered, reaching across the bars. It was Sister Elise. She had been missing for over 5 years. Everyone said she'd transferred to a mission in France. Her eyes opened slowly when she saw me. Dry. Red-rimmed. "Hello. Agnes," she whispered, voice so weak I almost didn't hear her. "Are you real?" I dropped to my knees. "Yes, I'm here." "What did they do to you?" She shook her head, tears falling. "You have to run. Before they find you down here. I'm not leaving you." Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "They know you're getting close. That letter. The one you hid in the hymnal. It's gone. They found it." A wave of nausea crashed through me. My skin turned to ice. "They're planning something," she said. "They won't let you leave. Not alive." I looked down the corridor. More doors. More prisoners. "How many are there?" Yes. Her eyes welled. "Too many." I rose, panic rising in my chest. I had to get help. I had to tell someone, anyone from the outside. The bishop. Police. Someone who could stop this madness. But when I turned back toward the staircase, it was sealed. A smooth wall now stood where the entrance had been. I screamed, pounded, clawed. No use. The convent had swallowed me whole. I slumped against the wall, chest heaving, thoughts spinning. Somewhere I could hear Elise whispering the rosary, her voice cracked and fading. From another cell someone else was sobbing, "Child." And from deeper still, something shifted in the shadows. Not a person, not a nun, something darker, something that shouldn't be there. That's when I heard it. A step, not coming from the hallway, but above me, in the chapel, right over the trapdoor. And a voice, not Mother Superior, not any of the sisters, a man's voice, laughing, then silence, complete terrifying silence. And the click of the trapdoor locking shut forever. The air in the underground corridor was so thick it felt like trying to breathe through wet cloth. My candle flickered violently, and I knew I didn't have much time before it burned out. I pressed my palm flat against the wall where the trapdoor had been, hoping it was some illusion, some cruel trick, but the cold stone didn't lie. I was trapped. I turned back toward Sister Elise's cell. Her frail form still curled in the corner like a wounded bird. Her lips moved in soft whispers, fragments of prayers I couldn't hear. "Elise," I said, voice trembling. "How long have you been down here?" She didn't respond at first, only stared at me with a hollow gaze, her eyes sunken and rimmed with crusted tears. Finally she rasped, "I lost count after the first year. Then I stopped trying." A year. They left her here for a year, maybe more. No sunlight, no warmth, no hope. And God had left this place long ago. I reached between the bars and touched her hand. She flinched, then held it, her skin papery and cold. "There are more of us," she whispered. "But they don't all survive. Some change." Change. She nodded slowly, like her neck was made of broken wood. "They take girls and do things. Experiments, punishments, exorcisms. They say it's to cleanse us. But it's not purification, it's torture. Sister Naomi." She screamed for 3 days. Then she stopped making sounds at all. I swallowed bile as it climbed up my throat. "We have to get out. There has to be a way." "There was one," she whispered. "But the last girl who tried to escape." Her voice trailed off, eyes drifting toward the far end of the corridor. "They put her in the final cell. The one that was never supposed to be opened." I followed her gaze. The last door. The iron was darker than the others, blacker like it had been scorched. There was a strange symbol scratched into the surface. Not a cross. Not anything holy. Something ancient and angry. "Elise, what's behind that door?" She didn't answer. She just pulled her knees to her chest and began to weep softly, rocking like a child. My candle was dying. I stood, clutching the flickering light, and moved toward the final cell. My footsteps echoed, each one sounding more like a warning than a move forward. The door had no handle, just a rusted keyhole and a small slit at the bottom. I knelt down and peered in. Darkness. Movement. Not the slow shiver of a sickly prisoner. Not the shuffling of someone starved. Something skittered, like nails against stone. I stumbled back, heart hammering against my ribs. But as I turned to retreat, I heard something from within that cell. Voice. A whisper. "Agnes. I've been waiting for you." Froze. No one knew I was here. No one alive. But that voice knew my name, said it with the kind of twisted familiarity that made my soul recoil. I don't know you," I managed to say, my voice thin. A low chuckle echoed from behind the door. "You do. You just forgot. Like all the others. Until they remember." Backed away. I didn't realize I had dropped the candle until darkness swallowed me. Panic surged. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. Corridor spun. Whispers hissed from every direction. Voices of girls. Prayers. Screams. And that same laughter. Deeper now, richer, almost amused. Like a sliver of pale blue light from the far end of the hallway. I stumbled toward it, following it blindly. It was faint, like moonlight sneaking in through a crack. As I reached the end, I saw it. A tunnel splitting off from the cells, barely tall enough to crawl through. The light flickered at its end like a dying star. Elise shouted. There's something here. A way out. But when I turned back, she was gone. Her cell empty. No trace. No blood. No sound. Just absence. I shouted her name again. Nothing. I didn't know if she had been taken, or if she had never truly been there at all. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't stop moving. I crouched into the tunnel, ignoring the way the walls scraped my shoulders and knees. The further I crawled, the stronger the stench grew. Rot, mold, and something worse. Despair, maybe. And then I reached the end. The source of the blue light was a lantern, cracked and sputtering, hanging from a hook above a small wooden door. This door was different. It was carved with scripture verses. Psalm 91, the one about protection from evil. But all the words were upside down. Sick mockery. I reached for the handle, heart pounding. Suddenly, hands grabbed me from behind. I screamed, kicking wildly. Shoo! A voice hissed. It's me. I turned and saw her. Sister Patricia. Pale, trembling eyes wide with terror. What are you doing here? Gasped. I followed you, she whispered. I saw you sneak away. I tried to stop you, but I couldn't. Waited. Then I heard the voices. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. We stared at each other. Two broken pieces of faith clinging to each other in the belly of a lie. Then she whispered. I saw them, Agnes. What they do in the infirmary. It's not medicine. It's not healing. It's possession. Or at least that's what they say. But the girls, they don't come out the same. They chant in tongues, scream in the voice of men. And then they're gone. I nodded, unable to speak. We looked at the door again. I think this is where it starts, I whispered. Or ends, she said. And we opened it together. The room inside was not what I expected. It looked like a nursery. Cribs. Children's shoes lined against the walls. The air reeked of lavender and something sour beneath it. In the center of the room sat a single chair. Bloodstained. Trap. And on the wall behind it, pictures. Photographs. Dozens. All of young girls. Eyes blacked out. Mouths sewn shut with ink. We stood frozen in horror. Then the photographs began to fall, one by one, from the wall. As if someone, or something, wanted us to see behind them. And there, beneath the peeling layers, carved directly into the stone, was a list of names. Sister Elise, Sister Naomi, Sister Agnes, and one final name, Mother Superior, crossed out, then written again. And beside it, Father Matthias, a name I had never heard before, until I remembered the voice in the chapel, the man's voice, laughing. I looked at Patricia. She was staring at me, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. Agnes, she said slowly, I think we've uncovered something we weren't meant to survive. The room seemed to breathe around us. That's the only way I can explain it. The walls pulsed, exhaling dust and death. The flickering blue lantern swung from its hook, casting shadows that looked too animated, too aware. I couldn't take my eyes off the name Father Matthias. It felt foreign, yet dreadfully familiar, like a forgotten melody that once haunted my childhood dreams. Sister Patricia gripped my hand so tightly her nails pierced my skin, but I didn't pull away. I welcomed the pain. It reminded me I was still alive, still human, still not like them. We need to go, Patricia whispered, voice cracking. Now, before we're next. I shook my head, eyes locked on the wall. No, not yet. We're too deep in. There's more. Agnes, this is suicide. I stepped closer to the wall, tracing the names with my fingers. Some were scratched so deeply into the stone it had bled red dust. And then I saw it, a hinge, a hidden compartment behind the pictures. I pried it open with trembling hands, revealing a narrow drawer. Inside it lay several old journals, leather-bound and crumbling. I opened the one on top, the cover stamped with gold lettering. Records, Father M.H. As I flipped through the pages, my heart began to break in places I didn't know existed. It wasn't a prayer book. It was a ledger, a diary of horror, Patient number 019. Sister Naomi. Signs of resistance. Sedated. Failed exorcism. Secondary method deployed. Results. Inconclusive. Reassignment, cell 4. Patient number 022. Elise. Highly unstable. Hysteria increasing. Response to ritual, extreme. Exorcism denied by archdiocese. Proceeded anyway. Vocal cords ruptured during process. Subject now silent. And then me. Subject number 030. Agnes Holloway. Exceptional obedience. Potential for future use. Exposure limited. Must monitor closely. Signs of memory disturbances. Possibly suppressing trauma from original encounter. I dropped the book, my legs giving way beneath me. Original encounter. What encounter? What is it? Patricia asked, crouching beside me. I couldn't speak. My throat locked. Because somewhere inside me a door creaked open, and I remembered. I was 10 years old. My mother had taken me to St. Benedict's to visit the holy women. It was a summer afternoon. They had given me a honey biscuit and told me to wait in the infirmary while she met with the priest. I remembered the warm sun through the window. The soft lullaby Sister Mary Lucille had hummed as she brushed my hair. Then darkness. The kind that falls suddenly. Like a blackout in your soul. I remembered hands. Woof, woof. Praying in Latin as they pinned me down. A man's voice whispering, "This one's special." I remembered the scream rising in my throat. Then silence. And when I woke, I was in bed at home, my mother weeping by my side, whispering that the fever was gone. That I had been blessed. They had done something to me. As a child. And I had buried it. Till now. The nausea hit me like a hammer. I retched on the floor. Patricia helped me up, but I could see the terror blooming in her eyes. Agnes, what did they do to you? They took me, I whispered. When I was a child, they broke something inside me. And I think they've been watching me ever since. Suddenly, footsteps, coming fast. From the corridor. No time to run. We doused the lantern, pressed our backs into the dark. The door creaked open. In stepped 2 figures. Not nuns. Not priests. One held a flashlight. The other a rope. They spoke in low tones. Father Matthias says they've gone too far. They've seen the ledger. What about the Holloway girl? She was always meant for him. It's time. The flashlight beam swept across the room, missing us by inches. Then it stopped. On the floor. On the journal I'd dropped. Damn it. They were here. Find them. We didn't wait. I grabbed Patricia's wrist and bolted through the nursery's back door. Down another hallway I didn't even know existed. The flashlight beam chased us like a demon's eye, bouncing along the cracked stone walls. We ran blindly, turning corner after corner, crashing into cobwebs, slipping on water, almost tumbling down the uneven steps. We were rats in a maze. Then suddenly light. Real golden light. I burst through a rotting wooden door and into a hidden sanctuary. An old chapel. Unlit candles lined the altar. And on the floor, dozens of small shoes and dresses like offerings. But what caught my eye was the massive stained glass window behind the altar. It showed a priest casting out demons in the name of God. But the demons weren't writhing in agony. They were smiling. Him. Patricia, I whispered. This chapel. It wasn't for prayer. It was for ritual. She pointed to the corner. There's a ladder. Maybe it leads out. We ran for it. Climbed with everything we had. At the top was a trapdoor. Pushed. It didn't budge. I pushed again, this time screaming. Finally, crack. Gave way. We emerged into the back garden behind the cemetery. Night had fallen. The convent loomed behind us, windows lit like angry eyes. Patricia collapsed in the grass, sobbing. I knelt beside her, trembling. We need to leave, I said. But we both knew it wouldn't be that easy. Because the convent owned us. Body, mind, and soul. And as we turned to run toward the fence, 3 nuns stepped out from the trees. faces blank, hands folded in front of them. Mother Superior in the middle. She smiled. "Daughters," she said gently, "you've wandered far tonight." I stepped in front of Patricia. "You lied. You tortured. You imprisoned us." She tilted her head as though amused. "We saved you. You were chosen. Especially you, Agnes. I'm not yours." "Oh, but you are," she whispered, stepping closer. "You always were. Your soul belongs to him." "Who?" "Father Matthias." Her eyes lit up. "Not father," she said, voice suddenly low, reverent, almost trembling. "Master." Behind her something moved. Something wrong. A man-shaped shadow that didn't walk. It slithered. And in the air around us, the temperature dropped like death had taken a breath. The ground shook. The chapel behind us exploded in a burst of light and fire. The force knocked me to the ground, ears ringing. Patricia screamed. Through the smoke, I saw something rise from the earth. Ants, dozens of them. Crawling, grasping, reaching. From the graves. The girls. The forgotten. Adam. And from the chapel ruins. He emerged. Glow. Face hidden behind a mask of bone. But I knew who it was. Father Matthias. And I remembered everything. The way he whispered prayers in reverse. The way he touched children like blessings and broke them like toys. And now, he was coming for me. The world tilted sideways. I lay on the ground, dazed, my head throbbing and mouth full of dirt. The sky above was choked with smoke and ash, and the convent's bell tower, its ancient silhouette, glowed orange with flames licking at its frame like demonic tongues. But nothing in that hellish landscape terrified me more than the figure walking toward us through the fire. Father Matthias. Rigid. Cloaked in black robes, his face hidden behind what looked like a skull. No, it was a skull. Bleached white and cracked with age, like a mask worn not just to hide, but to transform. And around him floated that thick, noxious presence. The kind of evil that didn't just taint a room. It possessed it. He didn't walk. He glided. Patricia whimpered behind me, still curled in the grass, whispering prayers with trembling lips. I stepped in front of her, my legs weak but defiant. I didn't know how I was still standing. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was the years of silence clawing their way out of my throat. "Stay back," I screamed. He paused. Then slowly, so slowly, he lifted one hand and pointed a bony finger at me. "You don't remember it all yet," he rasped, his voice like wind dragging chains. "But you will." "I remember enough," shouted. Mother Superior stepped beside him now. Her eyes fever bright, lips curled in something almost loving. "She was always the final one," she murmured. "The vessel. That's why we spared you, Agnes. Why we raised you. Why we buried your pain until now." "No," I growled. "You buried your crimes. You used the cloth to hide a cult." Matthias chuckled. Sounded like bones grinding. "This isn't a cult," he said. "It's a covenant. A promise made generations ago. To bring back what heaven rejected." The graves behind us cracked louder. Fingers, arms, faces. Girls crawling from the earth. Their eyes vacant. Their skin pale and cracked. Dozens of them. And all of them bearing the rosaries of Saint Benedict's. They were the missing. And now, they were returning. Patricia screamed. I turned to run, dragging her up with me. But we didn't get far. The other nuns, the ones we thought were allies, closed in. Sister Mary Lucille, Sister Beatrice, even Sister Benedicta, who we all thought had gone mad. Their habits fluttered as they moved to block the path, their faces hollow with a devotion that chilled me more than any devil. "You can't leave," Lucille whispered. "Not now. You're part of this." "Agnes, run," Patricia yelled. Tried. God, I tried. But hands grabbed me. Dozens of them. Dead ones. Living ones. I was dragged back toward the ruined chapel, where Father Matthias had begun chanting in a language I didn't recognize. The corpses of the girls, and Elise, Naomi, stood in a circle now, lips moving in sync. "Kick," I screamed. But no one was coming to save us. 'Cause no one even knew we were here. Flash. Bright golden light. The kind of light I hadn't seen in years. It erupted from the ground like a crack of judgment, splitting the circle in two. And in the center of it stood Tristan. Not dead. Not a ghost. But fully alive. Hair wild, skin dirty, eyes burning with righteous fury. She held a crucifix in one hand and a candle in the other. "I found the real passage," she said, voice shaking. "The one they tried to burn. And I remember everything." Matthias reeled back, hissing. The dead girls wavered. Some of them looked confused. One of them, Elise, stepped backward, blinking, and threw the candle. It landed at Matthias' feet. Flames erupted around him, feeding on nothing but air and truth. He screamed, not like a man but like something much older. Something that belonged in the dark. And the ground opened. The graves trembled. One by one, the risen girls collapsed, their bodies returning to rest. Elise looked at me one last time and smiled faintly before her body disintegrated into dust. Matthias tried to retreat, but it was too late. The earth swallowed him whole. And with him Mother Superior, Lucille. The others. False. The damning. It was over. But not for me. Not yet. I stood alone in the aftermath, the fire finally dying, the ground still smoldering with soot and sulfur. Patricia lay unconscious nearby, her face peaceful for the first time in years, and came to me slowly, her eyes filled with tears. "They lied to us," she said. "They raised us on lies," I answered. We sat together on the steps of the ruined chapel, watching the first rays of dawn break through the sky, and I cried. For the girls who never escaped. For the truth that almost killed me. For the God I once knew, and the version they twisted to suit their own hell. But most of all, I cried for the little girl inside me, the one who was never allowed to be whole. And that's when I heard it. A whisper. From the wind. Not evil. Not dark. But forgiving. "You were never meant to carry this alone." I looked up. The old bell, cracked and blackened, swung one final time. And it rang. Once. Sound of release. Sound of ending. And a sound of something new. About to begin. Weeks passed. The ruins of St. Benedict's convent were eventually sealed off by the authorities, but not for the reasons you might expect. The official report said it was a structural fire caused by a gas leak. An accident with no known casualties. No mention of the girls. No mention of the underground prison. No mention of the truth. They buried it. Just like they buried the others. But I couldn't bury what I saw. What I remembered. And what I survived. Patricia and I were taken in by a small local parish, Father Doyle's mission. An honest man with kind eyes and rough hands who didn't ask too many questions, only offered food, a bed, and prayers without judgment. And stayed with us too. The three of us shared a small flat behind the church, sleeping in the same room, taking turns waking in the middle of the night, still haunted by what we'd left behind. And every now and then we'd hear something. Not voices, not screams, but bells. One chime. Distant. Like a reminder. Or a warning. I started writing then. Every day. Not just to remember but to keep the truth alive. I wrote down every name I could recall. Every hymn they corrupted. Every ritual. Every whispered lie. The book grew heavy, both with pages and pain. But I kept going. Because silence is how they win. And stories. Stories are how we take the power back. One evening, I was sitting alone by the church window, watching the wind dance through the trees, when Anne sat beside me. She looked better, healthier. But her eyes would never be the same. None of ours would. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "why us?" I didn't answer immediately. I thought about the others, the girls whose names were scratched into stone, the ones who never had the chance to grow old. I thought about the ones who still believed, despite everything, that God was listening. "I think we were meant to survive," I said quietly. "Not because we're stronger, but because we remember." She nodded slowly. "And we're not done yet," I added. "We had plans, the three of us. to expose what we could, to track down the others who might have survived, to write, to speak, to never allow the cloth to hide another monster again. Started small. A letter to the archdiocese. Then another to the press. Most went unanswered. But one day, an anonymous envelope arrived at the rectory. Inside was a photograph of me, as a child, in the convent infirmary, and written on the back, in familiar ink. He's not gone, only resting, and he still wants you. I dropped the photo, and picked it up. Patricia locked the door. We sat in silence for a long time after that. I wanted to burn it, but I didn't. I placed it in the back of my journal, right next to the pages with his name. Because fear doesn't disappear by pretending it isn't there. It fades when it's faced. We began traveling soon after, to other towns, other parishes, places with whispered stories and familiar scars. We heard tales of girls who vanished, of churches that conducted strange, private healings, of priests who spoke in voices not their own. It wasn't just St. Benedict's. It never had been. It was a network, a buried system of obedience and sacrifice passed down like inheritance. And now we were the counterforce. I became Grandmother Agnes to the children we took in, abandoned, broken girls the world forgot. But we didn't forget. We gave them shelter, gave them names, gave them choice. We prayed together, not out of fear but hope. Because despite everything I still believed. Not in the false god Father Matthias worshipped, but in the true one. The one who listened through the silence. The one who wept when I was 10 years old and left alone in the dark. The one who gave me the strength to speak now. And so I tell you this. Evil doesn't always wear horns. Sometimes it wears robes. Sometimes it hides behind stained glass and sings in choirs. Sometimes it calls itself holy, and holds a Bible as it buries the truth. But no matter how deeply it buries it, truth resurrects. In survivors, in stories, in women like us. So if you're listening, if you feel that something was taken from you, you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're one of us. And we are still here. Still watching. Still remembering. Still fighting. Because this old nun witnessed the worst things imaginable that no one could believe. But now you believe. Don't you?